I haven't been able to walk all the way around yet to see, but the roof will be mainly solar tiles. So if we have a problem with a solar tile at some point.
So those will be empty for access, and then the gutter line will have access on the.
I never wanted to build standard apartments. We wanted to make an eco-theological statement. I'm Greg Sterling. I'm the Dean of Yale Divinity School. The environmental crisis is not simply a political issue. It is not simply an ideological issue. It is a moral issue.
What's the work we're supposed to do as guests on this earth? We're supposed to, in a fundamental way, lead the world in the praise of God. And we do that by caring for the world. But we also do that by the way we live in the world as we care about it. My name is Willie Jennings. I teach theology and Africana studies here at Yale Divinity School. We often can do a good job of thinking about ethical and moral dimensions of life when we think person to person or nation to nation. There's a lot of thinking about that today. But there's not enough thinking about the relationship between us and buildings, us and the ground, and how we establish a moral compass for how we build and how we live in buildings and how we build not just for our concerns, but for an entire community. What would it mean if people thought about their homes, not just in terms of what makes them comfortable, not just in terms of HGTV, but they start to think about the wider implications and ethics of my house that I'm building in relationship to this entire community. And so we need to bring a moral compass to where it has not existed.
The Living Village will be the largest residential complex to meet the Living Building Challenge when it's completed. I'm Jennifer Hurt, and my work is in Christian ethics. And I think sometimes when people hear ethics, they think it's all about the don'ts. It's all about the lists of things the rules that you shouldn't break. The theologian John Calvin had this beautiful idea of the circulation of goods. God has created the world as pure gift. And then the question is, what are we going to do with the gifts that we have received? Are we going to keep them, hoard them for ourselves, or are we going to share them? And this is so connected with what we're doing in the Living Village. All that we are and all that we have is gift, and being oriented to share that with others.
So this building will sensitize not just the people who live there, but the people who then come through it. We hope to have farmers markets in the courtyard. We have a kitchen which serves people beyond the residents. It will become a destination for schools who want to bring their science students to see what is one of these buildings like? How does it actually work? We want this to shape their consciousness and make them sensitive to the needs of the environment and to do everything they can, wherever they go, to help address that.
There are too many scholars that do their work in a university but really don't think about the surroundings of the university. They don't think about their citizenship and relationship to their communities. And so the Living Village says to them, we want you to think about how you live in a place so that there's a kind of ethical or moral vision that grabs a hold of your work and grabs a hold of how you live and brings those two things together. For the sake of the students especially, because they'll start to see one seamless work of living in the world. How I actually form a home, how I actually live in a community, how I actually think about waste, how I think about the sun, how I think about electricity, my carbon footprint as a part of the work I do.
Climate pessimism is really pervasive among people in their young 20s. The fear that so many of us have and the dejection that so many of us feel is that we often conceive of the people who are in like a leadership space in this as being a little out of touch with those of us who care really deeply about this and feel like it's under-discussed, underfunded, and often from the top down. I'm Mary Elizabeth. I'm a second-year comprehensive MAR, and I mostly study American religious history. What was most exciting for me when I first thought about the Living Village was the commitment that YDS has to kind of building sustainability intentionally with not only climate change, but environmental racism and the different ability for certain communities to have access to not only like things to fight the climate crisis, but kind of the basic needs that they should be having before that so that they can then, productively engage with how does our community need this and how can we bring resources into our community. If we all demonstrated a real material and policy commitment to not only looking at first steps like composting, but of building more sustainably, of having higher standards for how we build or how we don't build, how we protect land, that could make the Living Village a real beacon of hope.
What we're doing now is really groundbreaking. My name is Chris Run. I'm a superintendent with Shaw Construction. I've been working on Yale campuses for about 20 plus years. The biggest challenge we have is a lot of the stuff we're doing right now is new. We're putting a water treatment plant inside the building, a dorm. No one's building stuff like this. It's hard to build, and it's expensive.
The Living Village meets the Living Building Challenge, which is the most audacious standard that has been set for sustainable architecture, sustainable building. An element that you might not expect is beauty. Why is beauty at the heart of the Living Building Challenge? I think that really speaks to our mission and the way in which a divinity school can do this work of sustainability in a particularly powerful way.
So the question is not can we, but how will we? Because we have to. We have allowed a very narrow monetary calculus to shape the built environment. We cannot sustain that kind of narrow thinking, where some enjoy good water, good air, then others lack all of that. The village itself speaks to the need for a different reality.
But what I think is so beautiful about what we'll be modeling in the Living Village is that it's not about scarcity. It's not about giving things up. It's about living in abundance.
Yale has the foresight to really see what the future can be with construction and implement it. This is a pretty brave step.
We are not simply here to take, but we're also here to give and to cultivate.